J.B. Forbes, you know his work, years as the St. Louis Post-Dispatch photographer. Yesterday in the paper had some unbelievable pictures of the new Mississippi River Bridge. We wanted to bring him in to talk about that, but he also was there at Washington Park Cemetery yesterday. Some of the pictures today, so we'll get to all of that. JB, thanks for joining us here in St. Louis.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
First, let's talk about the Mississippi River Bridge. The pictures, you must have been dangling from some wire to get some of those pictures.
Yeah, we were in a bucket, and they pulled us up by that one big crane on this side of the river, and took us anywhere I'd want to go. And I said, I want to go to the top. So
you were in a bucket. Explain that. What do you mean by that?
It's like a cage, an open cage, and we've got our hard hat on. They supplied me with a harness, and they hook you into the cage, which is both good and a little discerning, just in case anything does happen. You're there to stay. And then the crane operator was great and took me wherever I wanted to go.
Now, is the R&R sanitation porta potty still on top of that?
I didn't see one up
Okay,
there.
all right, good. Just to make sure. As a proud sponsor of the show, we wanted to make sure to see if they were still there. They're still on schedule, right, to finish the bridge?
Absolutely. Yeah. They're supposed to put the last connecting piece in the middle of July. And interesting enough, they're going to do it at 2 a.m. And that's all because of the heat variances. And the two sides of the bridge have to be exactly lined up. And heat can change that, just like it did for the arch way back when.
They say that last wedge at the arch, Jack Buck told me they had to separate the legs to get the arch piece in.
They are going to have a big jack for this also to make sure that they get the bolts lined up exactly right. So it'll be really interesting to see how close they do come.
You also you clearly had to walk out into the middle of it as well to get the pictures of that last sort of space there as well, right?
I've been watching this bridge almost since it started, as have many photographers, because it's such a beautiful structure, and just watching the construction and it's such a magnificent piece of work. Just as I talked to there's a picture showing right now of a woman iron worker, and I talked with her briefly. And she said, I'll never get this opportunity again. She said, I'm almost 50, and to be on such a wonderful project like this is really something.
So the workers know that they're doing something special.
They know it's historic.
Right.
Yeah.
As a photographer, what is it about the bridge that caught your eye?
The beauty of it, the engineering involved, which is way over my head, but these guys were so patient with me, and they answered every question, and there's so many interesting facts about the bridge and how it's going to work.
Yeah. The picture of the dial, I guess that's the best way to explain it, with the numbers, and I guess it's where they thread the cables through.
Yes, correct. That
was interesting because, that just goes to show you how they actually build this thing.
And they build it slightly different from the bridge up in Alton, where all of the cables went up and over the top of the towers. And they said that will be much more difficult to repair in case a cable ever breaks, because all of the cables are bundled together. But with this one, they're all separated, and they come into the concrete and into a little room right at the top. And each cable is pulled through there and put at exactly the right tension so that the bridge is perfectly balanced.
The pictures from the bridge, as you look into downtown St. Louis, you see the Edward Jones Dome, you see the arch, you see that all new roads leading to it. Those are great pictures.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a view that nobody else is going to see.
Right, for a while. Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
You were also yesterday, I guess, called to the cemetery of this girl who was missing 30 years ago.
I've been working with Christine Byers, the reporter, who was on this story from the beginning, and it was really our story. We supplied the photographs that enabled them to pinpoint to pin down the location where this girl was buried. And in looking at Ed Seday's old pictures, he was a Globe Democrat photographer. He covered it. Apparently the Post was not there at the time of this girl's burial. we lined up those pictures and got very close to where we thought it was because the headstone wasn't in the right spot, and they'd already tried to dig there and hadn't found anything.
Okay, go back a second. Explain this, because this is riveting. They took your pictures and superimposed them on the pictures from 30 years ago?
We just we blew up copies of the pictures, took them out there to the cemetery, and tried to line them up, which was difficult to do because Ed had taken some telephoto lens photos and wide-angle pictures, and when you try and line these up, we could come close, but obviously everything has changed. The place is so overgrown, and trees have gotten old or died, and it was hard to find markers. And so then a lady from Washington University was brought in, and she used computer research and GPS findings to pin it down even further, and that's where they did their dig.
Because they ultimately dug up a grave in which the bones weren't there, right?
Yes, they dug up and found other bones and realized right away that they weren't those of the little girl. They were too big. And
ultimately, they decided to dig next to a tree that wasn't there 30 years ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the tree had actually fallen, or almost fallen, during the last storm, so they had to cut it down, or cut the top part of it down, and started digging. And as they got down closer, they hoped they were in the right spot. As they got down closer, first they found a staple, and on this little girl's grave, her coffin, they had put white cloth over the top of a very flimsy plywood box and stapled the cloth down. Well, they found a staple, and they said, aha, we're getting close. And then they found plastic flowers, and they knew that she had been buried with plastic flowers on top of the grave.
Explain this story. Is so sad on one hand because it's this Jane Doe girl. On the other hand, the painstaking work that you, Christine Byers, the Washington U researcher, everybody else, the officials, wanting to go the extra mile to give this girl some peace. That's extraordinary.
Well, it goes way beyond our efforts or our interest. It was an investigator who handled the original case, a detective named Joe Burgoon, and he has since retired, but he is still, this case haunted him. And so he was out there also watching and hoping they would find this little girl, because he remembers standing over her body in an abandoned house in North St. Louis 30 years ago, and never finding closure, never finding out what had happened and who did it.
But he has kept this story alive, more or less.
He has, and it was handed off to another detective, a very good one named Dan Fox, and he was out there supervising the dig. And now, because of DNA testing that has improved over 30 years, they think there's an opportunity they can at least pinpoint where the girl is from, which I thought was fascinating. I hadn't heard of this, where they can test the bones and find out what kind of minerals are in the bones and what kind of water she drank, and so that they can narrow down the area where she came from.
Right. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, you take the bones from 30 years ago, and you can pinpoint where she grew up.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
It's just amazing, and some amazing pictures and amazing stories, and you tell your stories through your lens. So we appreciate you coming in. JB Forbes, pictures are all online, right? You can see them all.
They're all online on the STLTODAY website.
You got it. JB Forbes, thanks for coming in. What are you doing today?
Good question.
You don't know yet.
I never know. I like it that way.
There you go. JB Forbes with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch photographer. Thanks for coming in.
Right, thank you.
8:29 here on the Big 550 KTRS.